Tim Petrowich for Dateline, Marion, and we're here with our weekly visit with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And Coach, first of all, we always talk about this. It always happens so quickly. 1/3 of the way through the season, you're through the preseason portion, I guess, if you break it down that way, pre-conference and then conference games. And 3-0 start, but not only that, you've won every game by at least 3 touchdowns. And I think that may be, the best case scenario, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, yeah, it's been a good start. There's no doubt. Kids have bought in and executed well, and now the challenge is to maintain that. The challenge is to not get complacent, but continue to get better, and encourage them that we're proud of what they've done, but at the same time, take those film sessions and point out where we can be better, and just stay hungry and stay humble about it and keep working, because we may be playing one of the best teams on our schedule without a doubt this week, and they're sitting at 0-3, and I looked at their schedule before you arrived, and I saw the teams that they have lost to and the records of those teams and who those teams have played, and it's an impressive list. So this will be another, Wimbo calls this another 15-round heavyweight fight with Cahokia, so it'll be tough.
We want to get into that in just a minute, but I want to go back and reflect on this last week's game, and it was a 48-28 win over Highland. Well, one of the things that you have talked about throughout this season, especially with teams like Jerseyville, Highland, even Heron to a certain extent, is you want to get out on top early and force them to have to play catch-up, because that tends to make them more uncomfortable. And you were able to do that this last week with the first 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's big. When you play, don't get me wrong, Highland can throw the ball, but with their quarterback's ability to run and their running back, I think Coach Warnicke would lean on the side of being a more, ground-based team this year. But I was extremely impressed by how well they threw and caught the ball against us, by the way. But certainly, no matter who you play, passing game, running game, whatever they have, getting out in front changes the dynamic of the game and can force teams into a more one-dimensional way about their offense. And I think we kind of took the running back out of the game by getting ahead, and we forced them to throw the ball, which they did pretty well. But I think the big thing for me was it took away some run options for them and forced them to air it out quite a bit.
It's difficult to talk about a football team and then have guys that week in and week out have standout performances. And,
sure.
And I think probably one of the performances that stood out to me the most was, again, we've talked about a lot, but Vincent Newsom, 3 touchdown catches, 187 yards in receptions, had an interception at a key time, and a big 4th down tackle to stop a drive. And just, in all phases of the game, he is starting to excel.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of credit goes to him. And you're right, it's a team sport, but certainly individual standout performances need to be mentioned, because it's a big deal. And I think, Vincent's the first kid to tell you that his success is because of, what his teammates are doing for him, giving the quarterback protection, Evan putting the ball where it belongs, the running backs helping. All those things help add to Vince's success, but man, when he gets the ball, and he can do some special things, and I just, he's fun to watch. He's been great to coach the last 4 seasons, and I just am proud of the fact that he has continued to work to get better and become a more complete football player. And boy, you can see it every Friday.
I know that there was a question about the quarterback spot coming in. Of course,
Sure.
It's hard to replace a guy like Hunter Simmons no matter where you're at.
Right.
Evan has answered that call, and he has put himself into the list of single season yardage. He's at the bottom of the list, but just in 3 games, he's now on pace to throw for more than 2,100 yards this year.
Yeah, I said this a couple of weeks ago, or even last week, that I'm proud of his work ethic. He's a pretty cool customer. He doesn't say a lot. He's a pretty quiet kid, but I know that he's absorbing everything we tell him. And if you point something out on film that he needs to get better at, or something in practice, he will go out and get better at that thing. And what I love too is he's starting to point out where his mistakes are before I can even mention them. He'll come off the field and say, I should have done, or, So, and that's a great sign that he's self-correcting and he understands. But he understands the big picture, understands the game. He stays within the system. He doesn't try to get out of the system and do too much. And we told him from day one, don't be Hunter Simmons, just be Evan Noley, and just do the things that you can do well. Stay in the system, distribute the ball, and he has trusted and had faith in what we've tried to teach, and it's paying him dividends. He's done a great job for us.
You commented on the fact he's starting to see some things he's missing. I think that's also a good sign that he's seeing the whole field out there and knows that there are things that are available for the next time you have that play.
That's a good point. I think, you cannot simulate games in practice. We all try. I mean, we do our best to make practice tough and give them game-like situations and looks, but nothing will ever take the place of a real football game. And so I think the Heron game was getting his feet wet and kind of, just getting an idea of what it was like. And in the second half of that game, he really started to shine and make some plays. And since that point, he has done a really good job of. And I love the demeanor. I mentioned that he's never too high, never too low. Evan's kind of the same guy, and he doesn't let a mistake linger. If he or he doesn't let a great pass or great play change the way he is the next possession. The next time we have the ball, mistake or success, he's kind of that right back into quarterback mode, doing what he's supposed to do, and running the offense.
Lucas Strum had a really good game. And a lot of people are going to say, he had an 84-yard run, but he had 160 yards other than that 84-yard run. And a lot of those yards were, again, between the tackles and squirting through holes and getting 8-10 yards a pop.
Those are when we watched film this week, we don't show every play on offense or defense. We select, 30 or so plays on both sides of the ball. And I think sometimes our kids are surprised that some of the clips that I showed were maybe where a quarterback throws a ball away instead of forces it in somewhere, or maybe a running back gets a 4 or 5 yard gain and not Well, the reason we do that is because sometimes the most important plays are those tough 3 or 4 or 5 yards you run for a first down, or to start a drive, to start the third quarter, you get that 5-6 yard gain to set kind of the tempo for the second half. And there were several times I thought he and Devin Margram both made some really tough runs. They weren't huge yardage runs, but they were just tough yardage. One time Lucas got hit, and I thought the play was over for a 1 or 2 yard gain. The next thing I know, he squirts through, and it's about an 8 yard gain, making it 2nd and 2 late in the game. And that to me is the money play for us, because first downs were going to kill Highland, and they had to get stops. And when you get 8 yards on first down, and now it's 2nd and 2, that's good. That's how you get that clock going and get it on your side. And so I agree with you. I thought his long runs were great, but it's those tough inside runs that show what kind of player he really is.
Talk about, and you mentioned Lucas and Devin both, and there's been other guys who have been like this, where these guys, Lucas in particular is not very big, but when he's in there and all of a sudden that whole pile moves forward 6, 8, 10 yards, that spending a lot of time in the weight room and doing things to condition yourself.
Yeah, he's very strong. He's a strong lower body, good squatter, good deadlifter. And Devin is the same way. They've been very dedicated to our weight program and have never, even though that Lucas is a baseball player and a multi-sport athlete, he's always taken his weightlifting seriously, and so has Devin. And I think with Cole Bundren and Lucas Lanier and Patrick Walker and Jordan Beverly, these running backs that we have, over and over again, they're guys that have been in the weight room getting stronger. I think it certainly shows itself in those tough ball games where that tough yardage is needed.
We've talked about the depth on the defense, and as I look through the first 3 games and you look at the tackle stats, and it's different players each week who lead the team in tackles, and just like it seems like everybody on that defensive side, from the line to the linebackers to the secondary, are all capable defenders.
We talk about offensively how we like to spread the ball among multiple ball carriers, multiple receivers. And on defense, I'd love to see when the tackle leader is someone different. That group of 5 that'll lead the team in tackles isn't the same group of 5 every time. And so that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a number of guys contribute in pass defense, pass rush, big play moments. To start the game, Maurice just set the tone with a big play by hitting the pulling guard, knocking the pulling guard into the running back, and making a tackle, and gosh, that's how you start a ball game. And then later on down the line, it's Clayton Tanner or Kanye Gunn or someone else making that play. And we had young men that made some mistakes, but then would bounce back a series later and make a huge play. And so I love to see those contributions, and our defensive coaches have done such a good job with last week, especially with a really good offense that showed a lot of firepower, and were able to contain them and hold them.
One of the things I thought about during the early part of the week since Friday's game is you mentioned those linemen, and we know how good the linemen are, and several of them, 6 or 7 of them, I guess, that are in there. And you look at the numbers, and I see, you hear a lot about like Michael and Kanye Gunn and Clayton and some of those guys, and you see 1 or 2 tackles, but what you don't see is the fact that they're maybe occupying 2 linemen to that are trying to stop them from getting where they are, so that someone else can come in there unblocked and make a tackle.
That's a great point. We saw that with Michael Gunn and Talent Hance this week, along with the other guys, and they're in there forcing double teams, allowing linebackers like Mason Norris and Tyler Seema and others to run free, and Devin Markham, and make plays, and so it is truly. We always see offense is such a team game, and it certainly is. But defensively, we're at our best when our defense is playing 11 guys collectively swarming to the ball, maintaining their run lanes, and not worrying about who gets the success or the tackle or the sack, but just making sure it gets done. And I love how Coach Skeet is shuffling those defensive linemen in and out every series or so, keeping them fresh, and that's paid dividends for us.
And you see that at the end of the game, like at the end of this Highland game, where the run game was a little bit in the first half, but as Highland's defensive line wore down and they're working in the trenches, they had a lot of players that went both ways on the line. You could see them starting to get tired, and that opened up bigger holes.
I 100% agree, and I think that's the great thing is that we don't have any offensive linemen that are playing defensive line, and we're able to keep our lines separate, which is the ideal situation. And we haven't always been able to do that, but certainly if you can separate the two and you can keep those guys at least more fresh, it really pays dividends in the second half.
Cahokia, really, it never matters whether they're 3-0 or 0-3 or 1-2 or whatever. They're always the same team. And you mentioned looking at their schedule. CBC out of St. Louis is always one of the top programs in St. Louis. They lost by a missed 2-point conversion late in the game. Homewood Flossmoor is ranked in the top 10 in Class 8A in Illinois. Don't know a whole lot about this Johnson Center, Kentucky team, except I know that not too many teams want to play Cahokia, so they must be pretty good if they'll take them on their schedule.
Yeah, so, 16 years of playing, no longer than that, almost 20 years now playing Cahokia. You put the film in and you see, this is the this is the 4th coach I've coached against, I think. In my tenure here, and you see those big linemen occupying, a lot of space and moving the pile on offense and road grading up front. You see the athletic quarterback that's a dual threat. You see running backs that can take it to the house. You see receivers that can go up and get it. It's really fascinating to see how consistently good they are and how consistently athletic they are and talented year after year after year. You're right. I have seen them 3-0, and I've seen them 0-3 at this point. And I think a lot of it's just the schedule they play. Because this football team that's 0-3 looks as good as some of the 3-0 teams we've seen that maybe didn't play the schedule this group's played. So yeah, it's a big challenge for us. One of the toughest challenges of our season.
There's a lot of new names, but the one name that sticks out that's familiar is the quarterback, Marion Gooden. Played in the spring. He's back again this year. I only could find stats on one game, but he threw for 140 yards and a couple touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he's also a running threat. And you mentioned they've got some speedy receivers with some familiar names as well.
He's a coach's kid, so
he's got football smarts.
Yeah, and so he's going to know the game plan and know that he's got football smarts, and you can watch him play and you can see that. They've got some guys back from a very good team last year. They've got some new faces. Some of the new faces are really talented. So yeah, it'll be, again, we've played them many, many times now. In the last 16 seasons, it has always been a battle. We've had so few blowouts on either side. It's always been a close game. So many of these games have ended very, very late in the final couple of minutes. So I expect that same kind of game again.
It will be good to see the name Sean Binford not on the roster.
Yeah, we're glad to see him graduate because he was a tight end the last couple of years, and he was a weapon on offense and defense. But just a big, strong, athletic tight end that we are glad to see graduate. Yes.
The last 2 years, you talk about always being about the last 2 years, the Wildcats have won this game with touchdowns, not within the final minute, but within the final 10 seconds of the game.
It's true. And that's what I mean. When I think of this game, I start to get butterflies on Tuesdays instead of before the game.
Well, I shouldn't have reminded you of
Yeah,
that.
I know. Thanks a lot. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the nature of it. I mean, I ought to be used to it by now, but that's the kind of game it's going to be. And we've been down at half and come back. They've come back on us. Several times we've been at halftime, and I'm thinking, man, this is going to get ugly, you know. And our kids have rallied and made comebacks, and so I don't know. I just know it'll be a hard-fought game. We'll have to go on the road and play there, and so it'll be a great matchup. And hopefully next time we talk, we're talking about being 4-0, but we're going to have to earn it. I guarantee you that.
You are on the road. You mentioned that the longest road trip of the year in the regular season. But this has also traditionally been a game where Marion fans have outnumbered Cahokia fans.
We have had great fan support everywhere we've gone. Of course, the Heron game was amazing fan support, short distance rival game. But we do travel well to Cahokia. When you go to Cahokia, you need that, and I think you feel really separated from the home side of the bleachers, and we kind of make our own little home atmosphere over there on the Cahokia sideline, and it's a good feeling to see our fans come and support us and make that trip, and we need that on Friday.
All right, it's Friday night at Cahokia. The Wildcats and the Comanches. It's a conference opener, and Marion looking for, actually counting last spring, win number 10 in a row.
Yeah, that sounds great. I know that it's exciting to hear that number, but as a coach, I just think about the next game.
You think about one instead of 10, right?
I think about the next one, yeah. So, but that's a cool thing to hear. But yeah, we're going to have to play really well, and I know that, like I said, they got a new coach, new system in some places, and a little bit different look maybe at scheme-wise, but ought to be exciting.
All right, that's this Friday night at Cahokia, 7 o'clock. That's Marion head coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.